My own belief is that we will never get Iran to really deal with the nuclear issue seriously unless we have a comprehensive set of issues on the table. The Iranians feel that the United States' main policy is regime change in Tehran. They have this deep-seated perception that that is U.S. policy. If that's the case, they're never going to negotiate with us seriously. So we also have to put our cards on the table in order to have, if possible, a constructive dialogue. Now, after a prolonged, when I say prolonged, maybe a year or two of negotiations of this nature, nothing comes out and we see that there are real differences that cannot be narrowed, then at least we know where we stand, and again, one can look at other options. But to me, it would be irresponsible to take the worst case scenarios, for example, military action against Iran, as a operating principle of American policy that's up front before having gone through this due diligence. And we may be surprised by what we find. Iran's population is very interesting to analyze. Only a little over 52% is Persian. They have a large population of Kurds, of Arabs, of other ethnic confessional groups. They have a very weak economy despite their oil wealth. They have to import gasoline and refined petroleum products. There's inflation, there's high unemployment, and there's a burgeoning youthful population. So Iran is not a superpower. It has its weaknesses that, again, I think would enhance the prospects of engaging with the country to see what the possibilities are to bring it into the larger community. I think we can. I'm not a proponent of the breakup of Iraq, even though it was in many ways artificially created by the British after World War I and the fall of the Ottoman Empire. But the British drew a lot of lines in the sand throughout the Middle East, and you can trace a lot of our problems today to the artificial divisions made by the French and British colonialists, and Iraq was one of those. And I think that there's still, despite all the difficulties that we've seen in Iraq, that there still is the idea of an Iraqi nation. But I think it would be held together in a form of federalism in which power and authority is delegated to the provinces or whatever regions that are carved out. I think it would be a mistake to carve out regions on a sectarian basis. I think regions should be carved out on an administrative geographical basis. There'll be more Shias in one administrative region, more Kurds in another, Sunni Shias mixed in others. But I do believe in a federalist solution to Iraq, but not on a sectarian basis. If we can get to that point, security issues are largely resolved, central decision-making on oil and how the revenues should be really shared throughout the country, provincial elections, and political reconciliation between the Sunni Shias and Kurds, those major sectarian groups. Those are big ifs, but I think that can be done in a federalist structure. But it would be a terrible, terrible development in my eyes if Iraq disintegrated into three sectarian zones: Kurdish, Shia, Sunni, whatever that, wherever you draw the lines, because that would be very destabilizing for the Middle East as a whole. And one example, the Kurds. If Iraq disintegrated, the Kurdish populations in Iran, in Turkey, in Syria, would have an incentive to join that Kurdish entity, and that would cause incredible territorial security issues for key countries in the region. in terms of U.S. strategy toward the broader Middle East, I think it's really important for whoever the next president of the United States is, the next administrations that come, to realize that this struggle within the world of Islam is their struggle between the forces of extremism and radicalism and the forces of moderation, between the forces of modernity and a very orthodox view of tradition. And this is their struggle. It is theirs to decide. But given our influence in the world, we can help influence that struggle, but we cannot decide it. That's very important. So we should not be that interventionist, but we should do what we can to help the forces of moderation marginalize the radicals and the extremists in the Muslim world. And that means using all the tools of diplomacy and policy that we can, from resolving conflicts such as the Arab-Israeli conflict that the extremists exploit for their own political ends, resolving Kashmir, which is a hotspot, a crisis center between India and Pakistan, Hindus and Muslims, by building up the institutions of democracy, but helping them build the building blocks, not to try to impose an American model of democracy on them, by very intelligent economic aid programs that help create jobs, which is essential to marginalize the radicals. And to have a cultural understanding of the region. We have to educate ourselves. Our diplomats have to be better educated. Our intelligence officials, our military people. We have to learn languages in this country, the languages of the region, so we can communicate with these peoples. There's a host of things that we can do, as long as we're intelligent enough to realize that this is a long-term generational process.